Welcome to the Supply Chain Pioneers podcast, where we highlight industry leaders on the forefront of innovation and technology in planning, procurement, and logistics. Hosted by your supply chain pro to know, Ulf Venn.
Supply Chain Pioneers is powered by Everstream Analytics. Everstream gives you the predictive insights and analytics to make your supply chain faster, smarter, safer, and leaner. Go to everstream.ai to book your demo today. Hello everybody and welcome to a new episode of Supply Chain Pioneers. And this is the anniversary episode. It's the first year since we started the podcast. We actually started it right here in Barcelona, in the Hilton. And today I'm all by myself, myself, and I, talking to you about the podcast, what happened in the last year. We're going to have some fun and just do some small awards. And we do that all not on the rooftop here in the Hilton in Barcelona, because unfortunately it rained a lot in the last couple of days. But we're going to do that right in my room here. You still have a great view behind you, as we had in the first episode. But otherwise, it's just going to be me and we're just talking a little bit. So first of all, I want to thank everybody for tuning in, listening, or watching. Overall, this has all been beyond my expectation. I mean, let's face it, it's a hobby podcast. I don't want to earn any money with this. I just want to have some fun. And to achieve what now is, I actually made some notes on this. Let me real quick pull that up. So now we have around 2,500 views across all platforms, so views and downloads. And we have, from a episode length, essentially, we have 750 minutes of playtime that were really digested by all of you in 21 episodes. And for me, that's a great achievement. I didn't think that was possible, frankly. I just wanted to do something new and fresh and had no expectations. And you all really helped bring that to a level that I could have never expected. So thank you so much for tuning in and your trust into what is Supply Chain Pioneers. The idea actually came from a time in COVID where I was a little bit bored because a lot of the creative outlets I use otherwise were blocked. Because you couldn't go out, you couldn't play with a band, you couldn't do this, you couldn't do that. So I wanted to find something to just have some fun with, and I decided to do videos. So once I did videos, I seemingly attracted a few new talents to supply chain management, because I did a lot of videos around Pokemon and supply chain management, gaming and supply chain management, also Star Wars. And I got a lot of messages from people that said, okay, well, I'm going to go into supply chain because I saw some of your videos and that inspired me. And not sure I can edit that out actually. But anyway, it is a thing that I then thought, okay, what do we do in order to keep the talents here and show them a career path? And also I wanted to do a more collaborative platform, and Supply Chain Pioneers, right? The vision is all about highlighting people in the industry that are doing something that is new and fresh and cool and awesome, and showing the whole career path from the beginning of their career all the way to where they are now. So people can see that there are different areas in supply chain management that you can tap into, different paths you can take. And for me, that's an important bit on Supply Chain Pioneers, is really showing, okay, there are ways to go from A to B, and it might not always be a straight line, but more like a curved line. And you, in hindsight, maybe it looks more clear, but then when you go through it, it's not. And we had this story unfold many, many times on Supply Chain Pioneers, and that's what's really near and dear to my heart personally, especially because I kind of drag people into the realm of supply chain management. So for me, that's just very important. Yeah. So I wanted to take the time to highlight some of the episodes we had and essentially hand out some awards to tell people what is something to look out for within these episodes. So I'm going to now mention some of the episodes and hand out awards. There's nothing coming with that. Essentially, it's just a theme. But yeah, so first of all, I wanted to start with something that was a big achievement. That was the longest episode we recorded for Supply Chain Pioneers. It was with Gary S. Lynch, who is the CEO of Uncertainty Advanced Corp, which is named after one of his books. He has a lot of experience, more than 30 years in risk management, and to share that obviously takes a while. Then he has also a lot of good points because he wrote a lot of books on the subject of supply chain risk management. And so we had a very long, in-depth episode that is really worth listening to because there's a lot of knowledge shared. So really check out the Gary Lynch episode. It's a great one. And he was also a firefighter. And that is, you get more experience in crisis management if you have worked in firefighting before, actually. So it's just a great episode. Just listen in. Then I wanted to highlight the most watched episode, which is Greta Koch, one of the technical negotiators for the EU Triple D law. She is also leading expert on the topic of AI. So I think a lot of things came together that really helped shape that. And also when I look at the demographic, looking at that video, we see that a lot of aspiring talents were also watching that. So that's really an episode that is good for the podcast and also for supply chain management, because we get people to essentially see what is possible and where the future of supply chain management is, and that's a sustainable supply chain. So here it was a lot about the CSDDD, what it means. Back then, it wasn't finally through the European Parliament. We talked a little bit about the status, where it was, but also about AI and the risks of AI and the opportunities with AI. And I think overall, just a really great episode. It is the most watched and downloaded episode, so I guess you have seen it, but if not, then just check it out. If you see this here as a summary for the very first time, then I definitely recommend to check that out. Then I wanted to highlight somebody, an individual who had the most appearances on Supply Chain Pioneers. And that's David Schillingford. And actually, David might be tied with two other guests I had, but I wanted to highlight him. Given it's a tie, I could pick one, and I wanted to highlight David because he actually was directly related to the inception of Supply Chain Pioneers. Because one of the my first real planned LinkedIn collaboration I ever did was with David, and it was a resounding success. And I really wanted to do more in terms of collaboration and sharing content and making it bigger together. And that's how I came up with the whole idea of, okay, let's do collaborative media platform in order to make sure that we reach more of the audience. And yeah, David was just great for that. A really good friend of mine. We worked together for a long time. And he's a really insightful character on LinkedIn. So if you don't follow him, who's not following David Schillingford? Come on. But if you don't, check him out. He's great. The collaboration we did back then was on my Eminem video. So Eminem raps about supply chain management. You can find that on YouTube if you like, at Ulf Talk Supply Chain. And he essentially masterminded everything into tricking the LinkedIn community into YouTube, checking that out, which actually is very hard to do, but he kind of made it work. It was really great. Then I wanted to highlight the most heartfelt moments in Supply Chain Pioneers. And that was definitely the Greg Cronin episode. So it's Greg Cronin and Greg Cronin. It's father and son. And both of them being in the supply chain business for a very long time. One of them being a C-level executive, an advisor to many companies. And then the other one being an aspiring sales director, and now actually working at Cooper. Doing great for himself there. And you saw from both of them that the passion is running deep on supply chain management and that they really enjoy what they're doing. and they really just get why it's so important, and that they have a very high mutual respect for each other. And what we also learned is that it's not only father and son, but also father and daughter in supply chain management, which was an amazing twist of events because I didn't know that before the podcast. And so you see that this passion for supply chain management really runs deep in the Cronin family. And to highlight that, I think was very special to me personally. I'm really glad they did that and shared their story. I really enjoyed it. So I just wanted to highlight that once again. Then I want to give an award for the most important topic for me personally on Supply Chain Pioneers, which is human rights. And I did that together with Tim Nelson, who is the CEO of Hope for Justice and Slave Free Alliance. I'm personally a big believer in human rights being super important for supply chains in the future, because for companies, it is on the one side, it's an ethical thing to do, and I'm happy to pay a premium to doing that. On the other hand, I also think it's important to get rid of human rights violation in supply chains as a competitive differentiation for businesses, because otherwise, I mean, if you can make use of free labor, right, then all other countries that don't do that are not competitive in comparison. And then we are spiraling into a world where I don't think a lot of people want to live in. And then those systems that kind of embrace that kind of behavior are getting more and more important, which then is a spiral that essentially doesn't really, I mean, in the long run, that doesn't help humanity and societies around the globe. So for me, it's a very important topic. Human exploitation should be not a thing, just from a selfish point of view as well. And then in addition to that, right, the less, if you take more care about your people, you also probably take more care about the environment, which again is, for me personally, a very big topic. And so I wanted to highlight that again. He had so many great stories around how they founded the organization that now helps free people out of human trafficking globally, how they work together with the police. And I think it's a worthwhile organization to check out as well, not only the episode. I would, just look if you want to support it. And then I also wanted to highlight a practitioner award, because essentially the three-way tie was between David Schillingford being the most appearances, Greg Cronin, the son being a good friend of mine, had a lot of appearances in the podcast. And then also the third one was Jan Henner Tyson, who is just a great advisor on the topic of supply chain risk management, really putting it into practice, having lived it in an organization, now implementing it into many organizations all around the globe, knowing how to drive the change management behind it, how to build a digital strategy. He really provided us a great like plethora of insights. And frankly, also wanted to highlight him in particular because it was the second episode ever recorded. And it was the first online episode. There were probably a lot of risks involved in that. And I wanted to thank him for doing it, right, and being one of the first. It's definitely rewarded because we have a lot of downloads on that episode. It's well received. So I hope he also enjoyed the end product. I re-invited him for the Christmas episode, which I believe is a very fun episode to watch or to listen to. We had a lot of fun there. We really combined Christmas with supply chain management, and also something you could check out if you need a little bit of holiday mood. Wanted to talk also today a little bit about behind the scenes. So first of all, I obviously started that, and a lot went into creating the podcast. There are a few people I wanted to highlight. Lauren McKinley from Everstream Analytics is the voice of Supply Chain Pioneers and the intro and the outro. And I asked her to record this because of her great voice. She directly was up for it, and she made 4 recordings, and then I botched the editing quite a bit, and I had to first find out how to make voices sound more grand, so really nicely. And then I learned you can double the audio, and that makes a ton of difference, which is a new trick that I really appreciate. I want to share here. But yeah, Lauren really helped me a lot setting it up and make it look professional from an intro point of view, because afterwards you get my botched English. Yeah, maybe it's good that I only ask questions on supply chain pioneers and don't share my opinion so much. Then I also wanna thank Heather Gondek. Heather is a good friend of mine, and she made the logo for Supply Chain Pioneers. And actually in the background, she was really helping me, encouraging me to do that, helping me find my style, reviewing a lot of stuff before it went out, giving me very constructive feedback, sometimes too constructive in a way that it was hard for me to understand that there's actually criticism in there. But yeah, she's a great friend, and I wouldn't have probably done it continuously without her encouragement at the start. So that's really helpful, and I want to thank her. Then there's Michaela, who actually is a graphics designer at Everstream. She provided me with some of the video parts that you see in my intro and outro, and that makes it look, then obviously I have to edit it, but doesn't matter, that's easy to do. In the end, she really helped me finding the right things to highlight in both of those, and that was super helpful. And otherwise I would have to pay a lot of money for it, actually, if she couldn't leverage her as a resource. So thank you for that. And then also on editing, I'm editing everything by myself. At the start, I took more care editing out the ums and ahs and so on and so forth. But then I realized that people don't really mind that as much. So now I'm doing a more light editing to episodes, which also means that the time I need to make an episode after recording is now down to maybe 2 hours instead of before being like 10 to 12 hours, which, given everything here is a hobby, it's not a work podcast or whatever, right? I do that in my free time. That is for me a great relief, actually, and helps me to sustain the podcast. Also wanted to talk quickly about Everstream. So as you might have seen, in the middle of this year, I started putting an Everstream ad at the start of the podcast. Essentially, that's a bargain I have with them, that I highlight the company I work for now 11 years. Really love working there. It's a great company, and they help me with promoting it, but still it's my podcast, it's my responsibility, it's my decision. I invite whoever I want, and then I put an ad in front of that, and then they promote it for me. And that's all there is to it, right? There's no decisions being made. If I do what I want, nobody has ever talked to me about this. It is still my thing. And I'm just grateful for the trust they have in me, that whatever I do, they just support. And I also want to thank them for that, and especially Jennifer Meister, who is the initiator of this agreement. Yeah, and then maybe a few other fun facts. The episode that took the longest from finding a date to recording it was with Nadine Kiratli-Schneider, because we actually wanted to record on a conference in person month in advance, and then it didn't work out that day because my cell phone had very low battery when I arrived, because my cell phone is really old by now, and I listened to too many podcasts traveling to the conference, and I forgot my charger. And then it kind of we forgot about it, I would say. And I had other guests lined up anyway. And then I think we recorded maybe 7 months afterwards. So that's the longest scheduling we had. Then another fun fact, Sekin Özgul was one of my first guests, and I never met him before. He was recommended by one of my friends. And it was such a great episode. I learned a lot. I got to know him, which already is great because he's such a joyful character. But also, I've never studied supply chain management, as many of you probably haven't, right? I think we all stumbled more or less into it, but now people are more preparing and studying on supply chain management. And that is, for me, something that is a world I have not yet seen. And for me, that was a super interesting episode. So I'm very grateful for him just jumping on a podcast and recording with me. That was great. Also, a few episodes where I just personally learned a lot. I wanted to highlight that real quick is David Thornewell, the cyber episode. If you look at the questions I ask, he starts pivoting very smartly into things that make more sense. Because I feel I know a lot about cyber, but then it's more on a supply chain management side, and he is really deep in the topic. So he was really great in guiding the episode. I learned a lot. I just had a lot of fun. I hope you enjoyed that episode because there was a lot of wisdom shared. One of my favorite stories was when he talked about cybercrime just being crime you do from the comfort of your home. Before you went to rob a bank, and now you do that online. So for me, it's just, yeah, he was very insightful. He had a lot of good sound bites as well. I could have made like a lot of shorts out of that actually to promote the episode with. Also loved James Gellert because he had such a great storyline as a human being. He's a kind person. He's super successful, still so down to earth, very kind. And his experience in financial risk is just exceptional. And also his view on, for me, really mind-blowing was a view on, okay, maybe there's another economic crisis coming, but a lot of people who are seeing that because it's like 10 years since we had the last one, they will not maybe even be able to manage it properly because they don't have the experience on that. A lot of the other talents moved on to do something different. So yeah, and that's financial risk is often, it comes in waves and it takes these downturns take 10, 15 years until they happen, right? And that's where it gets really critical. So that was a great view. I think it was a superb episode. If you haven't seen that, definitely recommend it. And then Sascha Taifke, he's really in security, business continuity, a great expert. I think what I really learned from the episode is how to practice properly for risks, which I think is still a heavily underused topic in supply chain management. And then the security environment has a leg up on us on that. And the way they do scenario planning, practicing first the process and then real life scenarios and applications, building up communication channels. It's just great. What is this here? Doesn't matter. Yeah, just check these podcasts out. I just wanted to, I'm yapping a little bit today, but I'm just thankful. If you're still here, thank you so much. So now at the end, I wanted to share some plans for the podcast. First is I have a hope, while I can't promise anything, but I really like the in-person episodes where we just sit together and have some fun. And I wasn't able to do too much of those. I hope that there are more opportunities for me to do that. I actually hope that we do some at Gartner already, but we kind of messed up, I think. So I could have been more smart about it, but I hope to make more in-person episodes in the future. Then I'm going to update the way I record episodes very soon, which means there's a new technology coming, which will improve the video and audio quality. I try to run everything on a very low budget because I'm extremely frugal as a person. But I really like doing this. It's a great adventure for me, and I'm happy to spend a little bit more chunk of change on this hobby now. And I hope that the better quality, I'm not sure how much of a difference it will make to any of you, but I just want to make sure I can deliver the best product I can, given that we now have an audience that regularly checks in and really follows the podcast. And otherwise, yeah, Guests will continue. I will just find people I like that I find interesting. I think it's an interesting story they do something new and ingenious, and they do something that I really love and like, and it shows a career path that is new for me. So really a pioneer in one way, shape, or form. I will just continue to highlight those kind of people that I find. And if you know about somebody actually that would be great for the podcast, just write to me on LinkedIn maybe. That's the easiest, I guess. And I would happy to hear their story and also highlight it, because yeah, again, I do what I want with the podcast, so I can do flexible decisions on that. And looking at my notes real quick, if there's anything I just wanted to highlight still. Actually, not really. So that's all I wanted to say. It's actually way longer than I anticipated. And with that, we do the classic. I'm going to say bye-bye.
This was Supply Chain Pioneers. Thanks for watching, listening, or however you are enjoying this podcast. You can find Supply Chain Pioneers on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all other major podcast players, as well as on YouTube at Ulf Talk Supply Chain. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment. See you next time.